Well, hello, Facebook. This is State Representative Elgie Sims coming to you from the Capitol, coming to you from my office here in the Capitol in Springfield. Want to say hello to everybody and thanks for joining. This is my ongoing attempt to keep you, my constituents, and the community informed about what we are working on here in Springfield. There are a number of items going on. Today, we actually we had some really good meetings today. The House Education Committees met earlier today. The House Executive Committee met, which I'm a member of. I just got done having a meeting with some of the reform groups and other legislators about reforming our state's bail system. What we are trying to do is make sure that you are that bail. When bail is given for a defendant or given for giving out by a judge, that we make sure that it recognizes people who are a threat to public safety and not just has people put in jail just because they're poor. So we've been working on that. We've still talking about and trying to get to some resolution as relates to our state's budget. Part of our we've had, and let me stay there for a minute. Has been important about today's event is, again, I want this to be a conversation between me and the community about what we're doing in Springfield, but also I wanted to have some questions coming from the community, and a lot of the questions that we got in advance of today's Facebook Live Town Hall related to the budget problems and the budget issues that we're seeing, and that's so I wanted to stay there for a minute. Right now, as we sit today, we're in year 3 without a full budget for the state of Illinois. We have, if you look, currently we have over $12 billion in unpaid bills. Every day we don't have a budget, we add to the state's debt by over $11 million. Now, part of our challenge has been, and again, I'm going to have, I want to go to questions but again, we've had a lot of questions speak to and ask about what's going on and why don't we have a budget. And part of the reason we don't have a budget is because the governor has been relying on and continuing to focus on an agenda that has nothing to do with passing our state's budget. He talks about having job creators be excited about passing political reforms, i.e. redistricting reform and term limits. Those are political matters that have nothing to do with passing a budget. If you want to talk about how we're going to fund our state schools, that has to do with the budget. How we pay for our state's pensions has to do with the state budget. Right now, recently there was a court decision where the judges just talked about the fact that we don't have a state budget, and the governor, as part of that decision, they talked about the governor's obligation to propose and pass a balanced state budget. Well, the budget that the governor just introduced, this is the third budget for fiscal year 18 that the governor has introduced. So he's had 3 budgets since he's been governor. And of those 3 budgets, they've been more than nearly $15 billion out of balance, including this year. This year, the budget is over $7 billion out of balance. And what the governor has failed to do, he wants to distract us by talking about items that have nothing to do with passing a budget, but they have all to do with passing a massive tax increase onto our families. Because he's trying to push costs down to the local level, and that will ultimately cause local governments to have to pass a tax increase on to their citizens. That's not what we're looking to do. As House Democrats, we've been looking at and going through these budgets and going through his budgets to make sure that the budget is not just there to benefit the corporate elites and big business. Budget and government is there to benefit those individuals who cannot help themselves, and it's there to be a help. It's not there to get in the way. So part of our challenge has been how do we get the governor to move away from the political agenda that he staked his claim to, and move to passing a real, balanced, fair budget that benefits the hardworking middle class families. So we've been working on that and trying to make sure that as a General Assembly, we want to pass a plan that doesn't put new taxes or new debt onto families, but it addresses the issues of concern. It makes sure that we have a good educational system for our young people. We have a top-notch higher education system for our communities. Part of the challenge that we've seen, we've talked. You will hear the governor say often about job creators wanting to have changes and structural changes in Illinois before they locate here, and that talks about those political items. Well, I've talked to many businesses in my district, and recently I talked to several business owners in my district. I had a business roundtable. Not one of them mentioned anything about political items. What they did mention was they mentioned stability. They wanted a government that's working. I had a company that was looking to locate in my district, and I met with the individuals. They were looking to build and expand, and part of their challenge was, if the state can't pass a budget, how can I be sure that they're going to address my issues? And that's you find that over and over again. The concerns that you hear from ordinary, everyday working people is that they want their issues addressed. They don't want a challenge. They don't want to hear about political items or political battles. They just want problems solved, and I agree with them. That's what I've been working on while I'm here in Springfield. That's what I'm working on when I'm in Chicago, back in the district. As I move around my district from Chicago, from Calumet City to Sauk Village, Linwood, Beecher, Momence, Manteno, the constituents that I'm talking to, they want problems solved. They don't want problems created, and they don't want issues that will not make their lives and their families' lives better. So with that, I'm gonna start going to questions, and if you have questions, we're gonna try to get to as many questions as we can. But I want to recognize those individuals who did submit questions beforehand. And again, if you have a question during the course of our conversation, please don't hesitate to reach out and submit your questions. We'll try and get to as many of them as we can. So I'm going to start with the first question I've got. I've got Sarah from Chatham. She said the question is, will some of the items that the governor wants from his agenda actually help the state be better off financially? And Sarah, again, that's part of the issues that great question. I think I talked about that a little bit in my opening. Part of the issues that have been raised by businesses are not those political items or political agenda. What businesses want, they want certainty. They want a certainty in their government. They want a tax system that works. They want a high quality workforce that they know can work and be prepared to come in and work on those items and issues that will make their businesses stronger. Recently, the National Federation of Independent Businesses released their annual areas of importance list, and on that list, the top 10 items on that list covered those same items I just talked about. It talked about certainty. It talked about a prepared workforce. It talked about a certainty in regulations. But what's not on that list was a political agenda. What was on that list was those items where you can grow the state's economy, where you can invest in communities and you make stronger communities, as opposed to investing in and focusing on those items that won't help to make us build strong economies or have a strong community. And so that leads me to the next question from John in Calumet City. It says, what can lawmakers do to decrease the amount of crimes taking place in cities like Chicago, where there seems to be an increase in crimes committed by gun offenders? Well, John, that's a great question. What what we are focused on now is, that just as I talked about, we've got to build stronger communities. It's not enough for us to just simply try and lock our way or incarcerate our way out of our current situation, because that's not going to happen. You can't incarcerate your way out of poverty. Right now, again, as I talked about in our opening, I was talking to representatives from the state's attorneys and the sheriffs and advocates about reforming our state's bail system. Currently in Cook County, there are over 500 people who are sitting in county jail with bails of $5,000 or less. They're there simply because they're poor, because they can't afford to pay the bail to get themselves out. But then you've got instances where individuals who have access to means. There was a young man who was just released from prison and killed recently. He had a bond of $100,000, which meant he had to pay 10% of that bail, or $10,000. He bailed out and he was killed soon after he was released from prison. There are times where our bail system will release an individual not because that person is not a threat, but because that person has the means to meet the requirements for bail. And that's part of what we've got to be talking about. We've got to be figuring out how we invest in communities to make stronger communities, how we invest in the educational system that will give our children and our communities an opportunities to be better. What I have often talked about is the fact that our criminal justice system is reactive. We react to after a crime happens, as opposed to investing in systems and investing in preventing young people and preventing people from coming into our criminal justice system in the first place. So that's what we've got to be doing. And part of yes, is it necessary to put policies in place that will incapacitate individuals? Absolutely. There are some individuals who need to be incapacitated, but if we are addressing the underlying issues that go into the reason why the person might commit an act, then we've got a better way to deal with what we're trying to. We have a better way to build strong communities and deal with the issues that we have. So I am a firm believer in prevention and investment as a result, as opposed to only incarceration. I believe that investments will help us to grow economies and grow strong communities. I've got a couple pieces of legislation this year that will focus specifically on that, and that is making sure that we are investing in building stronger communities. One of the pieces of legislation that I'm working on right now, and I'm working on with members on both sides of the aisle, is a plan to invest in making sure that small businesses, who I believe, as a former small business owner, I've watched the way that small businesses have an impact on communities. 2/3 of all new jobs are created by small businesses. So you want to give them the opportunity to be successful. So one of the plans that I have would allow for and invest in small businesses being able to go into areas of high crime or high unemployment and incentivize them to locate in those areas, build, invest in them, work in them, hire locally. Then also would incentivize them for hiring individuals who have a criminal background. So if you give individuals the opportunity to better themselves and give them alternatives to a life of crime, they will often choose that. So we've got to have the opportunity to make sure that we're investing in those types of opportunities, and that's a large part of my legislative agenda has focused on that. Another part of my legislative agenda is focuses on teaching entrepreneurship to young people. We are, one of the greatest things you find is that entrepreneurs, they either do new things or they do old things in a new way. And what I have found and I've heard from young people throughout my district and around the state and around the country and places I've gone to talk to young people, is they want to build things. They want to do new things, and they're going and they're interested in having the opportunity to invest in themselves and their ideas, And I think we, as a state, it would make sense for us to have and to invest in building and giving young people those opportunities. So why wouldn't we allow the State Board of Education and our schools around our state to have a curriculum in place that will allow young people to develop those skills? So that's one of the things that we've been working on right now. That bill is in the House Education Curriculum and Policies Committee. I'm hoping to bring that before the committee next week. I met with the State Board of Education today about the bill. So we are trying to move the process and move that package forward, because I just firmly believe that in order for us to have an opportunity for our young people, an opportunity for our communities, we've got to invest in them. So with that, I'm going to go to another question. So here I've got a question from Elizabeth in Mantino. And this says, I hear people talk about the state not having any money. Is that true? Well, what we have, as I talked about earlier, currently our state's backlog is at, our bill backlog is at about over $12 billion. And every day we don't have a full budget that recognizes revenues and expenses, that budget deficit increases. And that's on top of a pension deficit that is over $100 billion. So we've got to make sure that we have a tax system that recognizes our economy. We have a tax system currently, and for the 100th General Assembly, I'm serving as the vice chairman of the House Revenue and Finance Committee. So we've been looking at the state's economic climate. We've been looking at ways to reform our state's tax code. And what you see is we have a tax code and a tax structure that does not mirror the economy that the state has. We have a manufacturing-based tax code, but we have a service-based economy. So what we've got to do is but we've also got a system where those who are most able and those who are the wealthiest don't pay their fair share of taxes. So what you find, many of our corporate citizens don't pay any tax. But we've got to make sure that the tax code that we have in place is fair. So it's not balanced and based on the backs of those who are not most able to afford it, but everyone is paying their fair share. So what we want to make sure is that you give those individuals who are least able to pay, they should not be paying the same rate of tax as those who have more to pay. I've been a long time proponent of a progressive income tax. I've been a long time proponent of progressive taxes in terms of corporate taxation. I've been a long proponent in making sure that we modernize and innovate our tax code to make sure that we recognize and understand the differences that are occurring in our tax code, but also making sure that we don't overly burden those individuals who aren't able to pay. But I firmly believe that those individuals who have the ability to pay, they should pay. Those individuals who, there should not be a situation where someone who makes $10,000 a year pays the same rate of tax as someone who makes $10 million a year. To me, that's just fundamentally unfair. So we have been working on understanding and recognizing how our state's economy can be modernized, and that goes back to investing in those areas where companies and businesses who are looking to locate or expand their operations in Illinois, where they have the ability to do that. And that means that we've got to invest in a high quality educational system. We've got to invest in a strong social service safety network. We've got to make sure that we're not placing the burden on those who are least able to take care of those items that are ahead of them. So I got there. Here's another question I've got from Janice in West Chesterfield, and she says, "Why aren't state universities and colleges properly funded, and what are you doing to get them the money they deserve?" Again, great question, Janice. I have the great pleasure of representing Chicago State University, which I believe is one of the finest universities here in the state of Illinois. We've got Olive Harvey, that's also in the district, another fine institution of higher education. But we've got other institutions that are near the district. But the reason that we're having challenges in our state's higher education system is because we don't have a full budget. If we had a full budget, then we could properly fund our institutions of higher education. That cannot be the case. If we don't have a full budget, then you're going to continue to see programs. Like recently, Northeastern Illinois University had to eliminate 22 degree programs from their university. We can simply, you have students by the droves leaving Illinois, making choices to pick colleges in other states because their opportunities for higher education here in Illinois have been harmed by us not having a budget. You have students who have not been able to have their MAP grants, which is the monetary assistance program, which would allow students to go to college. Students are waiting for MAP awards they're still waiting for last year's MAP awards this year. So it all comes back to our inability to have a budget, and that comes back to the governor's failure to stand with us and work and do his job and propose a budget and stand with us and pass one. If we continue to talk about a political agenda, we are not going to pass good policy for our communities. It is not about a political agenda. My community, I go to community meetings all the time, and people in my community, they don't want to talk about a political agenda. They want results, and they want to make sure that we are moving Illinois forward. Our lack of a budget has continued to impact all areas of our communities, from higher education to our healthcare system. You have healthcare providers that are closing every day. You have increase in violence because there are individuals who don't have violence prevention programming and they don't have opportunities. You have individuals who are engaging in risky behavior or destructive behavior because there are a whole host of challenges that we're not addressing. We have mental health facilities closing each and every day. We have got to do better, and I'm here. I'm ready. We've shown that we can work together when outside items are put aside. We've shown we can work together. I've worked with the governor on criminal justice reform. I will continue to do so. It is something that's near and dear to my heart because I believe that we've got to give people in our community second chances. Our state's constitution calls for it. The word calls for us to give people second chances. I just firmly believe that we should do that. But that comes back to putting aside and understanding that a political agenda is not what the people of Illinois sent us here to do. They sent us here to create solutions, and that's what I'm prepared to do. And I stand ready. I stand ready to work with the governor on that. I stand ready to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to do that. And when we have a full budget, we will see that the investments we'll make in higher education will be better. The individuals individuals who will begin to continue to choose Illinois schools as an option. We've got some of the best universities in the world. I've had the good pleasure to meet with diplomats from foreign countries, and one of the things that everyone they've always talked about Illinois' system of higher education and having students come to our universities because they are exceptional. We have programs that are unmatched and unrivaled, and we have faculty of unmatched and unrivaled around the world. But it's necessary for us to continue to invest in them and not to hold our universities and colleges around the state of Illinois hostage by engaging in a political war. Here I have a question from Maggie from Peatone. Are there plans to revitalize areas in the 34th district outside of the city of Chicago? And Maggie, absolutely. I don't just represent one part of the city of Chicago. I don't represent one part of the district, of the 34th district. I represent the entire 34th district, which is one of the reasons why I make sure that we provide programming throughout the district. We hold satellite office hours throughout the district. We recently held a business roundtable in Moments, where we brought business owners together to hear their concerns, and some of the concerns that they raised helped to go into the legislative package and the legislative initiatives that we drafted for this year. One of the initiatives that I drafted was the Illinois Homegrown Business Act, which focuses on making sure that if you have a business, or you're located in what's called a border town. So several of the cities in the 34th district border the state of Indiana. So we want the state's Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity to come up with a strategy, talking to those business owners about how to invest in those areas where individuals can deal with the regulations that other border towns might have that will be hostile to businesses located in border towns in Illinois, and make sure we have a strategy that will help them be competitive and allow them to be able to grow. That for me, that is important, because I understand that if we invest in communities and we invest in businesses and we're growing our opportunities, our communities are going to be stronger. Our economy is going to be stronger. Our state is going to be stronger, and that's incumbent upon each one of us to do that. So my plan has always been to focus on all of the areas of the district and putting them in the best place, in the best position to be successful. Whether that's schools in Peatone, or schools in Manteno, or Moments, or Beecher, or businesses in Chatham, or in Calumet City, or Lansing, or Linwood. That has always been my focus, and will continue to be my focus. So with that, I want to say thank you for all of the great questions. This has been a great opportunity and a great experience for me, and I hope it was informative for you. But let me also give you some information on some upcoming events. March 10th, we've got our event in conjunction with New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church on our viewing of 13th. We're going to have a panel discussion hosted by Perry Ermer, who's the president of the DuSable Museum. Then on March 20th, we've got our annual State of the District Town Hall being hosted at Chicago State University. We have the ability, we're hosting that in conjunction with the Student Government Association at Chicago State. We're going to come talk about those issues of concern to the community, and again have a game plan for going forward for how we're going to improve our communities, because that's how I really believe that's how we're going to improve communities. It's going to have to be done block by block, community by community, and that's really where this is not. I can't do this alone as your state representative. I cannot pass enough legislation that will help to turn our communities around. But I need everybody working with me to help make our communities better. It can't be me as your state representative. It's got to be community leaders and business leaders and civic leaders and families working together to make sure that we are getting done what we're trying to get done. That's building stronger communities and moving our communities forward. So again, I hope to see you either on the 10th or the 20th, and we'll keep doing these town hall meetings, because I want you to stay informed about the legislative measures that I'm working on here in Springfield, and the things I'm doing here in Springfield and I'm doing around our district to make our communities better. So thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye.